There were a lot of things I could be angry at him for, but the way I saw it was that all of the energy that I had inside of me that was feeling anger could be used to fuel something good for my life. I made a conscious choice to move on from his abuse. I just wanted to live my life, give the best of myself to my kids, and create a new life for us. And that's exactly what I did. Now that the kids are secure in their rejection of me, and he feels very comfortable and confident that they dislike me in the most cruel twists of irony, he gets to shift into this role of protector. So this video is about two things primarily. I'm going to be opening up about what caused my mental health breakdown and some of the things that helped get me through it. So I'm going to be sharing with you a part of my parental alienation story. I have been a part of the family court system for 14 years now, and nearly every year of that, I have had at least one court hearing, if not multiple. And in the last few years, it's been anywhere from 3 to 5 court hearings every year. And I'm just here to tell you that's exhausting. I always tried to stay out of the courts, even though there was significant issues going on. I found the court process to be very emotionally and financially taxing. The current process we're in right now is that my ex has filed yet another petition to modify. It's his 4th attempt at trying to take custody of my kids. And so I'm dealing with that process. When I divorced my children's other parent, there were a lot of things I could be angry at him for. But the way I saw it was that all of the energy that I had inside of me that was feeling anger could be used to fuel something good for my life. I made a conscious choice to move on from his abuse and to put it in my past because I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want it to be part of my life anymore. I just wanted to live my life, give the best of myself to my kids, and create a new life for us. And that's exactly what I did. Also, I was willing to give him a chance to be a different and better father than he was before. And I was okay with the kids having a relationship with him. I wasn't reminding the kids that he had abused them, and I wasn't reminding them of the disturbing things that he had done. I was ready to move on. I wanted my kids to live a good life with both of their parents. I just wanted it to be done separately. And so I wrote a song when they were really little, and I sung it to them every single night. And some of the words of that song were, "Mommy loves baby, Daddy loves baby." Because I wanted my kids to know both of us were there for them. They got to get both parents. This wasn't a battle of them having to choose one or the other. They knew from my heart at the very beginning that they got to love both and they got to receive love from both parents. But I really can't say what the other parent's motives were or what was going on in his mind, but the words and actions that kept coming from the other parent were very telling that he had not moved on, that he was still thinking about the past and begrudging it and wanting revenge. Because now at this point, although the physical abuse stopped because we weren't with him anymore and there was light shed on it, and so people were aware, he did stop that, but he didn't stop the psychological abuse. And the psychological abuse just went through the roof. He couldn't let go of the hatred he had for me, and it really wasn't sufficient for him to be the only one to hate me. He wanted to convince his whole circle to believe that I was the wrong one, and he wanted them to pick a side, his side. So he insisted on telling them the truth, which really wasn't the truth. It was his truth and his false reality of the way he wanted things to be and the way he wanted others to perceive the situation as, which was really just his distorted beliefs and hatred of me. And so the lies started coming. He wanted to recreate the story to make him look good and me look bad. So he laid little seeds of doubt in the children's minds about me. He told them things that weren't true about me, and he taught them to question me. He badmouthed me. He taught them to call me by my first name instead of Mom. And he interfered with my parent time. And he taught them to generally distrust me and question me and disobey me. And then there came a time where he actually taught my boys that I never wanted them because they were boys, that I never loved them, and that I never cared for them because of their gender. And that kind of garbage went on for more than 10 years. Nearly every weekend that they went to visit their dad, they came home with some new poison about me. And all of these vicious attacks by him were unprovoked. I was living my life. I wasn't interacting. I was making sure the kids were seeing him. I was inviting him to all their stuff. I didn't talk about him. He wouldn't stop until he had convinced the children of the truth, which again, really wasn't truth. It was his version of reality, which is very distorted and not grounded in truth whatsoever. And so the kids started feeling the pressure that they needed to pick a side. They were constantly talking about, well, who's telling the truth? And Dad wants me to live with him. And all this pressure was put on the kids. And the way I tried to combat that was to say, look, guys, you don't have to choose. This is not a scenario where you have to choose who's telling the truth or who you want to believe or who you should love. I reminded them constantly, you get to love both parents. You get to spend time with both parents. You don't have to pick sides. And I always believed that it was best for the kids to get to spend time with both parents until it became very apparent to me that that is not what he believed. In his world, there would only be room for one parent, and that parent would be him. And so I was faced with being removed from the children's lives. And at that point, I really started questioning whether it was good for the kids to see their dad. So while the kids were young and going back and forth between their dad's house and mine, they would always leave my house very, very happy. They were happy children. They had a good life and were doing happy things. And they were excited to see their dad and in very good moods. And then when I got them back, they would hit me, kick me, spit at me, throw things at me, curse at me, and make all sorts of false allegations against me. It was obvious that he was telling them things about me that were emotionally upsetting to them and that had the intent of trying to get the kids to hate me. And this was very damaging to the kids. So I've decided in this video I'm going to share with you some of the things that actually happened to me and my kids, some of the things that the other parent actually did and said. And I hope that it will help you see what this actually looks like, because we can talk all day about bad-mouthing, about undermining, about parentification, and all the things that make up parental alienation, but what does it actually look like? So just as soon as we were divorced, the other parent started inappropriately empathizing with my oldest child. And he would say things to him like, the reason we're not a family anymore is because Mom won't forgive Dad. So my little guy has spent years, and in fact, he's still kind of doing it 14 years later. He spent years trying to get me to forgive Daddy because he actually believed that if I forgave him, then we would be back together and my little child wouldn't feel so sad that his parents were broken up. Yeah. And when I brought that up with the other parent and I expressed deep upset to him about that situation, his response to me was he was so proud of our little 4-year-old for wanting to help his daddy so much that he wanted to carry his daddy's burdens. That is what the other parent felt, was that that was actually a good thing for a 4-year-old to carry his daddy's burdens. We call that parentification, psychological abuse, plenty of other things. Totally not okay to make a child carry that, or to make the child think that it actually was true, and it's not true. It's not the truth at all. Another thing the parent said was, Dad wants the kids and Mom wants the money so she can spend it on stuff. I mean, I could talk a lot about that and how totally deceitful those words are. But besides them being deceitful, it's just psychological damaging to the kids' minds to say that. He proceeded to tell them, when you guys get older, you can come choose to live with dad and you don't have to live with mom anymore. Yeah. Are we breeding the kids to reject mom at 2, 3, and 4 years old? Yes, we are. That's what he's doing here. There were numerous other occasions when the children asked me why I was stealing money from dad. And those times were always coincided with when he would pay back due child support that he hadn't paid in a long time. I remember one particular occasion being that he had his dad pay me back due child support. And that particular day, one of my children was very upset at me and said, "I can't believe you stole money from dad." You know, none of this behavior is normal. I will just say that. It's not normal for another parent to be so spiteful towards the other parent that they would actually call paying child support stealing. I don't know. You tell me. So much more of this type of psychological abuse happened over the years. You know, according to him, what he felt was the kids needed to know the truth, right? He was determined that it was so important that they know everything. What he didn't understand, and that he still doesn't understand, is that that's actually not normal behavior. Additionally, what he thinks is truth is not true. It's his version, but we're going to get into a lot of things about him and the personality disorder that he may have and how that actually distorts his way of thinking, that he will create stories that he buys into and wants to other people to buy into that just aren't true. Anyway, so all of that was going on. Bad-mouthing turned into demoting me as their mother. He not only referred to me by my first name, but he actually required my children to call me by my first name, and he required them to call his new wife as mom. It's one of the things that narcissistic parents do to cause a separation of feeling, so the child removes their association from the rejected parent as their parent, and they're able to kind of distance themselves and desensitize their emotions from their parent and kind of think of them more as a peer, but kind of less than a peer too. So we'll get into that in another video. But the point is that not only did he call me by my first name, but he required the kids to call me by my first name, and his new wife was now mom. And his reason, and we're going to get into reasons with these narcissists because they're crazy. His reason for this was because he didn't want the kids to be confused. He felt that they would be confused with his new wife around. And are you kidding me? That's just off the wall weird to think that, but it could have just been an excuse. Who knows? All right, so then when the kids got to be young teens, he provided them with electronic devices, and then naturally the kids want to bring the electronic devices over to my home and do their thing with them. Well, when I start to set up appropriate parental boundaries and rules on these devices, I was told by the children that no, you can't do that. This didn't come from your house. This doesn't belong to you, so you're not allowed to have parental rules and boundaries on our electronic devices. With which I, of course, am like, well, that's nice you think that. You're still a child and this is still my home. And if you're going to bring it here, then yes, there's going to be rules and boundaries. But that turned into him telling the children, she just wants to control you. She's just controlling it. She's just manipulative. If you're grounded from it and she takes it from you, she's stealing from you. He was able to undermine me and my ability to even parent them, and then also put in false ideas of what my parenting really is and make them think that they have proof that I'm controlling. And it was just all sorts of weird. All of this turned into making false allegations of abuse towards me. And so while it was stressful all along the way, this hit a peak of stress that was on a whole nother level. And ironically, it shifted him into a role of now he didn't have to badmouth me anymore. He got to be their protector. And so then they got to kind of stand behind him and let him bully me. And then he would have the kids call and cancel parent time with me. And he got to stand back and just say, oh, it's them. I'm not restricting them from coming to see you. They just don't want to see you. The problem with that is that it's actually parentifying the child and giving the child parental rights that they don't have. He shifted them into the role of canceling and blaming it on them, which quite honestly is like he's a pansy because he's not standing up and taking ownership of it. He's allowing them to take the heat. Okay, so while all of this abuse was going on, I was the only one caring for the children. He refused to pay child support, okay? So for years, I carried the full financial responsibility of caring for my children on my own shoulders as a single parent. I wasn't happy he wasn't providing, but I had a certain amount of pride of knowing that I could do it on my own. And you know what? I had the greatest prize anyway, which was the kids. With his failure to pay, it caused a lot more pressure on me and on the kids because it just meant I had to work more. And at the same time, he was lobbing these attacks at me the whole time. And I remember it getting to a point where I reached out to him and I just said, will you please just acknowledge to the children how grateful you are that I'm the one that's working and providing for them? Can you say something nice about me? Because it had just been so exhausting how much poison he had put in them about me. And he knew, as well as I knew, that he wasn't doing anything to financially provide for them. So who's the one that doesn't care about their kid? So here's the text I sent to him. You know, I have thought so many times that even if all you did was admit to me or the kids how thankful you are that I work and provide for them, that would mean so much. I would consider that progress. So many days I work from 4 a.m. till midnight, and the kids just see me for just a moment in passing. I've done this for years, and I'd cry at night because our kids would come back from your place and tell me the mean things that were said about me. And it's not just you, it's other members of your family who say mean things about me too. And I have always tried to treat them with respect. Well, I never got a response, and unfortunately he didn't stop. But honestly, it's not surprising because in his mind, he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. And he had a reason for anything that might be in that category of wrong anyway. And so he felt justified in his treatment of me. So evidence of his role in the eventual rejection of the children towards me is abundant, and it is well documented. And, you know, in the most cruel twist of irony, now that the kids are secure in their rejection of me, and he feels very comfortable and confident that they dislike me, and so he feels really secure in his own narcissistic world of he's the best and I'm the worst, and now he gets to shift into this role of fake support, where he encourages the children to have a relationship with their mother. In his words, this is what he has to say. And this is so typical of someone who doesn't get that they are abusive or that they are psychologically messed up. He thinks these words actually are like sound great, and they don't. And I'm just going to read it to you. These are the words that he actually spoke to me. I don't know why you think I'm trying to turn the kids against you. I'm simply not. In fact, it's the opposite. Well, again, like I said, he's able to shift into this supportive role now that he's secure in their rejection of me. He's probably not bad-mouthing me as much. I mean, he is, but not as much. It's a little different, right? He gets to act supportive. So continue going on. In fact, it's the opposite. He says, I'm trying to help them have a healthy relationship with you. I want what's best for my kids. Here we are. This is the fun part. Those of you who have psychotic exes, you'll relate. And that would be a mother that loves them and accepts them and doesn't try to control everything about them. Awesome. So essentially what you just told me is that you believe that I am not that person. He said, I want what's best for them, for my kids, and that would be a mother, not you, but a mother that loves them and accepts them and doesn't try to control them. So of course he's insinuating that I'm controlling, that I don't accept them, and that I don't love them, right? Even though I can read those words and I can see how sadistic his thinking still is, the kids don't really see through it that way. They think, oh, he's being so supportive. See what he said, see what he's doing. They're too young to understand that is a really twisted way of sounding supportive, because it's not actually supportive. It's subtly telling them that I really don't love them. And that he's referring to, he wants them to have someone, but it's not me, And so hence, they think I'm manipulative, they think I'm controlling, they think I'm lying, they think I'm selfish, unloving, and unsafe. And it's so twisted because I was the only one providing for them. I showed them the most unselfish love, and I worked zealously to provide a good life for them. I spent lots of time with them to not just like financially provide, but to build memories and to build relationship and to build fun. And I just remember so many nights after they went to bed, that's when I would go to work, and I lost sleep for years because I didn't want to just work while they were awake and then have us all sleeping. I wanted to actually see them when they were awake. And so I worked through the night, and it was like some of the best years of my life. It's just crazy and extraordinarily frustrating and painful to know what I felt, what I was going through, and how I felt, and what I was doing to build loving relationships with my children. Not perfectly. I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. I was happy to apologize and do better, and that's all they look at, is how they think I'm a failure, and they don't even give me the most basic of courtesies, which is to think of me as their mother. I'm just AJ to them. I'm just that person that gave birth to them. There's nothing about any of the sacrifice I did that they think about as loving. And so, someday this is all why it's called parental alienation, because they're very manipulated and they are very convinced that they are very not manipulated, but they are. And that is the frustration of parental alienation that we are all dealing with, right? It's interesting because I believe now that he is somewhat aware that his past behavior incriminates him. He knows it. He knows it's all documented. He knows it's true. There's no getting away from the truth of what he did and said over the years. And so now I've seen him kind of start to change some of his alienating behaviors, because I think he's hoping that he will be able to not look like the guilty person that he is. So he's like making attempts to be workable with me, even though for 12 years he responded to maybe 2% of my communication efforts. Now he's suddenly Mr. Nice Guy and really wants to let's work together for the benefit of the children. And it's like, it's garbage. You know what? The damage is done. Your behaviors through the years solidified where we are at right now. Who knows if they're going to come back? Who knows, right? And even if they do, I lost years with my kids. Years. Before I knew about parental alienation, I was just hoping that this was a phase that the children were going through, like a rough teenager phase, and that it would just be something I would just have to get through. I felt that if I was patient, that things would improve, and that they would, maybe see the grass isn't greener on the other side, and that they would remember all the good, all the love that I gave to them. It's ironic that the children would be able to forgive and move on from his documented actual abuse and neglect of them, but that when I make mistakes, it's unforgivable. But, that is the power of personality disorders, truthfully. And the kind of what it's at the crux of parental alienation is it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for a child to reject a loving parent who's been there for them, who they lived with, who they spent every day with, and were well taken care of. But it's not normal. And that's why we call this parental alienation, because kids who come from real abuse, in this situation, their father really was abusive. They still forgive him. They still love him. They still want a relationship with him. But parental alienation changes their mind. Something shifts in their mind that makes them think that the only thing that they can do to solve the situation is to cut off the relationship with one of their loving parents, and usually the healthy of the two. Personality disordered people, they are incredibly persuasive. And that, in combination with teenagers who really want what they want, and they have a parent who's willing to kind of like basically let them get what they want all the time, it's really enticing. And this happens. This shift in their minds of like, well, this is what I want, and that parent's not letting me get it. And in fact, this parent's telling me that parent is controlling, and you know what? I want this thing, so I'm going to come over here and tell that parent they're toxic or they're controlling or abusive, and here we are as alienated parents. So it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I stumbled on the term parental alienation. Chills went through my body. I felt so validated, and so not even validated. No, that's the wrong thing. I felt like something come alive in me, because there was this word that defined everything I had been through for almost 2 decades. Suddenly I became aware that like other people know about this. There's a definition for this. And, up to that point, I just had hoped that, it was just rough teenager years. There was more than just, these are rough teenagers years. That what I knew, all of this really disturbing and not normal behaviors that had come from the other parent for more than a decade actually had caused real damage. And that it was the source of the children's rejection of me. And so it wasn't that, they're just rough teenagers. It's not that, they want to try out the other parent. It's the little and big things that happened on a pathological basis over a very long period of time had worked themselves to the point inside of those kids' minds that they were changed, that they were damaged, that they believed a very manipulative lie. Now I had a description for it. Now I knew what was the cause of the problem. So I wasn't alone. And I'm going to continue the rest of the story in a second video. So make sure you watch that video to get the rest of the story, because we're going to get into more stuff and also what I kind of used to help me start the healing process.